This episode is brought to you by Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, now playing only in theaters. In this franchise's final installment, the most iconic adventurer of all time comes out of retirement to search for a legendary device with the power to change history. Harrison Ford returns alongside Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Mads Mikkelsen. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, now playing only in theaters.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta, by Wyndham. Wherever your work takes you, you know it's going to be a good time because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. They have free breakfast, fully equipped gyms, and free high-speed Wi-Fi to help you take care of any last-minute business or help keep you in the know on all things sports. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you triumph. Book your stay today at lq.com.
Trail Blazers superstar Damian Lillard has finally requested a trade. We all saw it coming at some point. Lillard warned the franchise 2 years ago. He made demands. GM Joe Cronin did not come close to meeting those demands, and now Lillard wants out. Welcome to the Blazer Focus podcast. I am Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian. I'm joined by Craig Birnbach, who's wearing a Knicks t-shirt and a Montreal Expos hat. Only I can see him because we're not on video. But anyway, the end of an era is here. Anyone who was paying attention knew this was coming. Before we get to our long list of topics, Craig, your initial reaction.
Oh, I thought this was a Summer League podcast. My bad.
Yeah, I went to Summer League press conference today.
I had to wait for Fentress to do this because he's at Summer League. You know, it's Saturday. That's why I'm wearing the Duds hat. I love how you say, like, everybody knew this. Meanwhile, you spent so much time trying to tell me how there was another way.
See, you always twist. You're the master of twisting. I'm saying everyone knew this was coming. If they didn't do, I just kept holding on to hope that they were going to do one of the things on the to-do list. Just one of them. Can I get one? No? Okay. Well, it was Jeremy Grant.
I'm just saying, like, they did do one. They re-signed Grant, and people tried to act like that was going to be something, and I was like,
no, he was on the team last year.
And they, you know, they got to spend the money, the new CBA. Look, you know what? You know where I stood the moment they drafted Scoot. I said it was over.
Yeah.
I mean, they made their choice. They just weren't honest about it publicly, and maybe not even privately, that was their choice. So here we are. I mean, Dame did what he had to do. This is what Dame Lillard did today. What he said he was going to do.
Yep.
Which is what Damian Lillard has done since the day, well, I don't know when it started, but since the day I met him when the Blazers drafted him, he was a guy who said, hey, if I say it, just ask me. He would tell the media, like, why you go with rumors when I tell you, and when I say it, it's true. He said it. I don't want to play with 19-year-olds. I want to try to be on a Blazers team that has a chance for a championship.
Yep.
And all the Blazers did since the season ended was the opposite. So he said, if you don't do anything, if you don't show me that you're trying to build around me to win, I will have to have a conversation. And he did. And the difference here, in my opinion, is the Blazers, Joe Cronin representing them, I don't know who's saying this. I don't know who's telling him to say this. I don't know who wrote the statements. But he continues to say, we wanted him to stay, and even after draft night, when they drafted 3 dudes and didn't make one trade, 2 19-year-olds and a 21-year-old is your old guy, he kept saying, oh, no, we're still building around Dame. And everyone has any knowledge of basketball was like, but you didn't. but you didn't. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you didn't even trade the other guard.
Right.
Like, you have 3 point guards. So all Dame did was say, okay, look, man, he played it exactly the way he said. He even gave him a day. He gave him a day for the Hail Mary. Like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you are. It's like when someone's lied to you and I'm not saying it's a lie, but when someone tells you something and you like, I don't think that's true, but okay, I don't have the proof right now.
Right.
I don't have it not nailed down. He's like, all right, said nothing, played a little, welcome to Miami. on his Insta, like he did do that. But boom, he gave him a day. They signed Grant, and then nothing. So he did what he had to, he did what he said he would do. He's like, if you don't build around me, if you don't show me you care enough to build a championship while I'm here, I'm going to ask out. And again, that doesn't mean it's the wrong thing for the franchise. It just wasn't what you said you were going to do. And Damian Lillard said, okay, I got to go. Welcome to Miami.
I mean, we can end the podcast right there, bro.
Right? That's it.
I mean, there's really nothing else to say. So, look, I've been Mr. Optimistic. We all know that. And I kept having conversations with people, and I kept being told, well, there's still this and there's still that. So, like you said, sometimes when you don't necessarily believe it, you're going to give them a chance, right? Let's just see. Because the trading period and the free agency period was coming up. It came on Friday. Yeah, Friday. And I sat there, and we had Blazers trade free agency tracker post. I was ready to post there, sign this guy, got this guy, did a preview listing some, just throwing out some names of people who maybe they could get. And they kept going off the board, the ones I said that maybe the Blazers could get. And the Blazers' big announcement was signing Jeremy Grant, which if you knew anything about this team at all, you knew that Grant was going to stay because he came there to play with Lillard, but that if Lillard left, Grant might leave. So the signing of Lillard at least made it seem like that there was, okay, maybe something else was going to go down and that Lillard was going to stay, but nothing happened that day. And whatever my thing was, I texted someone with the Blazers and I, like, I'm bored, what's going on, it's only day one. I'm thinking, you don't have a week or 3 or 5 days to figure this out.
How this works.
You got to do this right away. You got to make a move ASAP because other people are making moves. You can't just wait 3 or 4 days to make the cherry pick some deal. I expected on Monday for them to, at the very least, use the mid-level, like on a name, like someone like Brooke Lopez, which maybe was a fantasy, but just something somewhere was like, oh, that's an interesting piece. Just do something, and then maybe the Ant trade came later. Preferably, the Ant trade for OG came right away, or some kind of Ant trade, or some kind, or giving the Bulls the next year's first, so they could trade, or taking the protections off, so they could trade future first. Just something to indicate you were going to do, and nothing happened. And so I kind of went to bed last night thinking, this is kind of weird. Like, well, maybe something will happen the next day. Well, yeah, something did happen the next day.
Yeah,
Damian said, I'm done. So Damian was on the verge of being done on draft night. Even though he knew, even though according to sources, he knew going in that they probably, and Cronin said this, I mean, aside from my sources, Cronin said that they told Dame they probably were going to keep the number 3 pick. But what about 23, like you said? You can't, here's another thing, if you can't package Ant, number 23, and some stuff to go out and get something, then what are we doing here? Like, why even pretend you could go forward after taking your best trade asset and using it on a player who literally checks every box of the very last thing you need on this team, which is a 6'2", 19-year-old point guard, when your best player is a 33-year-old, 6'2" point guard who needs,
and your third best player, right, is a 6'2" lead guard,
and you need bigger, longer, adult players, which everyone said they needed. So yeah, and that's why I was so on Cronin that day, was because it was like, what are you saying? Like, are you really saying this is the only thing you could do? And is Dame okay with this? Like, is this going to have that? And he didn't really have good answers. He was being political again. And so I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, because you never know. But now we're to the end game. It's over. Not even just because of what Dame said, but you can't trade Ant. For whatever reason, whatever deals they're trying to do, no one wants Ant in whatever they're selling. Because I was even thinking, heck, why not Ant for Kyle Kuzma? To me, Ant and Kuzma are pretty similar players. Kuzma's a forward. They need a point guard out there in Washington. Why not that? That wasn't even the thing. So I think Damian is 100% in the right here. I can't wait to get Cronin again in a press conference, because I almost feel like they executed their plan, and maybe they got lowballed to number 3, and that's fine. And maybe partly that's Damian's fault for running his mouth for a month. But at the end of the day, I feel like all along they were like, you know what? The best thing for this franchise is to just move forward and pretend we want to keep Dame and hope Dame asks out.
Yeah, I think they pushed it. They someone said, I got a person I like a lot who's around the team a little bit, said that, they love Dame. Thanks, Dame. Did great things. Was great here. But now I'm going to root against him. I was like, why would you do that? Like, I'm like, he doesn't want him to win a title. I'm like, why? It doesn't take away from your joy if he gets joy, and all he's done is bring you joy. And he's like, well, I might have felt different if he didn't ask out. I'm like, he kind of didn't. He kind of begged. He begged, please do something, anything to make me stay. And they kept saying, oh, we're gonna. And no, they didn't. And when you say maybe Dame running his mouth, Joe Cronin, his statement today saying they're going to, after Dame admitting Dame is just asked out, which is weird. Teams don't usually do that, as Aaron, as you well know. They usually don't just admit that the guy's asked out. What's the point? But he said, we're going to do what's best for the franchise. Why didn't he? He had so many opportunities to say that, and he didn't. He said, I was so close to putting all my chips in. Oh, we've got all these assets. We're going to go for it. We're going to build around Dame.
Yep.
End of season, we're going to build around Dame. After, even after the lottery, when you knew you moved up to 3, we're going to build around Dame. After you didn't build around Dame and you drafted 3 young guys and didn't make one trade on Dame on draft night, you sat in front of people and said, even though everyone's like, they're going, sky blue, sky blue, sky blue, sky blue. You're like, no, sky red. We're going to build around Dame. Like, no, you're not. You are not building around Dame. You drafted his replacement, and you haven't moved one player off this roster that's completely unbalanced. And let me say, there was a moment where I was like, oh, I might be wrong, right? Let's admit it. You and I, Fentress, we like being right, like we do. So there was a moment when Fred VanVleet went and made $7 billion with the Rockets. And I love him, by the way. I love him.
You thought maybe
I was like,
to Toronto?
Uh-oh. I was like, uh-oh. Like, maybe Toronto will get desperate enough to trade OG for Simons, even though everything we had read was that they turned down, stuff maybe better than Simons for him. But I was like, uh-oh, like this makes sense now, right? Like, what is Toronto going to do? They got a new coach, maybe. And when that didn't happen, like when that door opened wide for and they replaced him with Schroeder right away, right? They went and got a point guard. I was like, well, that's interesting. Okay. Like, well, that's over. Like, that's not good. That's not either. In my brain said either they don't like Simons enough to do anything, or the Blazers didn't offer it, right? Because that's the spot. So there was a moment where I was like, uh-oh, they might do this, and they might, if they get, I personally don't think OG, Grant, and Nurkic and the team they have is still good enough for a puncher's chance. But I thought, well, that might sell it, and maybe I'm wrong this whole time. Maybe I was wrong the whole time, and then nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
Are those the noises you make when things crash with your child?
I was saying, I was like, same thing. I mean, and then I watched Miami do these let Vincent go, right? And let Stoops go, and then make another trade to just get some money off the books when they Oladipo go. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's over. Like the Miami's they're all in on this, and Miami is right. Like if it doesn't end up in Miami. Miami's kind of went all in, and they're going to be they're in trouble. They'll be in a little bit of trouble. Now they'll fix it because they're Miami. But there's no excuse. There's none of this, by the way. At this point in time, this isn't small market stuff. They had the assets to do stuff.
Well, I was going to get to that.
They made a choice.
So listen to this.
They made a choice.
So they tanked twice.
And
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, and the choice probably is, I think it's probably the best move for the franchise long term, as far as trying to get to a championship. But that's not what they had said. And this is not small market where you didn't have the stuff. You had the stuff. Right. You could have made the trades. You could have tried something, and you did nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. So this is 2 years in the making. And,
yes.
And you and I both agree that Dame pretty much handled this almost flawlessly. 2 years in the making. I want to see movement. Okay. He gave O'Shea a chance with what they had coming back in 2021. Then he gets hurt. CJ gets hurt. Cronin takes over. Dame has surgery, so he has surgery. They have the 7th pick. He's going to give them time, right? So from that point on, they had these assets: CJ McCollum, Norman Powell. They ended up tanking for the number 7th pick, which then, of course, became Sharp. So they still had that asset. That's one asset, 7th/Sharp. Then you had the number 3 pick this year and the number 23 pick. You could have unlocked the Bulls situation with the 23rd pick maybe, and then opened up 24, 26, 28, 30, those years, 2024 through 2030 on the even number of years to have first-round picks. And you had Ant and you had Nurkic. That's a lot of stuff.
Don't forget Hart.
Well, yeah.
And they did a good job with that.
Hart was in the CJ trade, though. Like, Hart was in the CJ
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So, they and Hart ended up being the Knicks pick at 23. So I'm just, I'm trying to, can't count people twice. The only thing that they have done, and it was right out the gate pretty much too, was getting that Milwaukee Bucks 2025 first round pick in the trade for CJ to New Orleans, which also brought you Hart, and then flipping that and a trade exception for Grant. That was money, because Grant and CJ are comparable players, but one is 6'8" and one is 6'3". You'd rather have the 6'8" guy who's a better defender, more versatile scorer, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like, wow, that was a great move. Since then, nada. And at the end of the day, if all you have is Jeremy Grant to show for all of those possibilities, you basically have stated that in your mind, you cannot pass up all of these young assets in order to help Damian win. Yep. You made those decisions.
Yep. Yes.
I've heard that the trade offers for number 3 were lowball offers. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not even about whether or not Cronin was right or wrong. It's a matter of what it is, what it looked like. And what it is and what it looked like is a franchise that's planning for 2027, not 2024 and 2025, which is what matters to Dame. Therefore, Dame had no choice but to say, I'm out. Yep. And for him to come back, and some people are like, oh, Scoot's going to be amazing. He and Scoot and this and that. I'm like, get the hell out of here with that nonsense. 6'2", 19-year-old is not going to come in the league and make some big kind of difference like he's 1979, 1980 Magic Johnson and elevate this franchise. It's just ridiculous. So Dame made 100%.
And let me just say this.
Go ahead.
He might. Like, I don't think he could. I looked at it. Yeah, like the guys that under 21 and under that have even won a championship, it's Magic, Kobe in his 4th year, and when he was 21. I'm just saying. But here's the thing:
Tony Parker as playing with Robinson and playing as the 3rd or 4th best player, not a sheer cloud, unless he's playing with David Robinson and Tim Duncan. So yeah, if Scoot came in with Robinson and Duncan, he might help them win the title.
And Kobe played with Shaq,
right, in his 4th year.
Who didn't suck?
It took him 4 years to win it. Right.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. And Dame's not Shaq. So.
And you know what position they played? Theirs. Like, what are you doing? Like, he's going to play the 2? He's going to play the 2. He's 19. He's never done any. The moment that kid, and even it doesn't even matter if he can shoot. The moment he stepped on a basketball court, people are like, "Oh, get that dude the ball. Get him the ball," because he's athletically ridiculous. That's why he was the 3rd overall pick.
Right.
Not because he's the best shooter, not because he's the best quote unquote defender. He needs the ball to play point guard. And you currently okay, so the other option, we'll move Dame off the ball. Right. So take the best pick and roll player in the NBA, the best, averaged 32 points a game last year, and say, hey dude, play the 2. Can you come off a pick and shoot rather than, can you get a pass and shoot rather than come off the pick and roll and do what you do? Like, it's ridiculous. And if Joe Cronin drafted that with that in mind, if he drafted Scoot with the thought that they're going to go for a championship playing either Scoot or Dame at the 2, then that's ridiculous. Then he's terrible at his job. Yeah. And he didn't.
Listen, I was told by a team source that Dame and Scoot playing together was not going to be a thing.
Of
So
course not.
At least we, yeah. That I mean, a few minutes here and there, obviously, but that no, you wouldn't start them together. Also, that Ant is way ahead of Scoot, which is funny when I argue with people about that. It's like, are you? Some people literally just believe that Scoot Henderson, right? Like he may have a bigger upside, but he's not better than Anthony Simons, right? Anthony Simons, if he played in the G League last year, he doesn't average 17 points. He averages 37 points. He would score as many points as he wants to score in that league. Scoot Henderson in 19 games, 9 of them he shot under 40%. He had 5 turnovers or more, like 8 or 9 times. He averaged 3.5 turnovers in not very many minutes. He shot 27% on threes. His defensive rating, everyone keeps talking about, he's ready to come into the NBA and play defense. He had a 118 defensive rating in the G League. Now, that can be skewed by the rest of the guys around you, but I guarantee you not one scorer in the NBA is sitting around going, oh my God, what am I going to do about Scoot Henderson, the 6'2" fit? Like, it's just, the whole thing was absurd. You make this pick. If you don't flip 23 Ant, Nurk, and future picks into a legit center and then another use mid-level exception to get yourself another stud so that, like my OG fantasy, right? My OG fantasy is Aiden. They don't like Aiden, though. You get someone else, whatever. And then at least you have a puncher's chance to do something. You let Scoot be a deep backup. But no, when you can't do that, you are looking at being a very, very mediocre team. And why on earth would Dame stick around for that? So we agree.
And that's and
we got to find
mediocre.
Something to disagree on.
No, mediocre at best. To me, it's mediocre at best.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't make any sense. No. You draft, you tanked. People are like,
tank twice.
It's not a real rule. It's not really a rebuild. 2 years you tank. Most teams in a rebuild tank once. You tank once. They tank twice, people. They tank twice. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm done. I'm done at this point because I've been saying this all along that they're not a good team. Your dream sequence of saying, well, when they were all good together, they were a top 4 team. And I'm like, okay. And, my hair could grow back. Like, all these things, I didn't believe it.
Okay, listen. They were a solid team when they were healthy. There's no denying that. The record was there. The ratings were there. Don't even stop. Their problem was
I know, but it's 15 games.
No. This was 30-something games in. They were above 500 despite Dame missing 12. Listen, if they were reasonably healthy, they would have been at very worst 6. I think. I honestly believe that. But that doesn't necessarily defeat your point because no one's ever fully healthy, right? And so you had no depth. You had too much youth. You were going to Keon and Trenton Watford and Nasir Little and Eubanks and not Ant. It's one of the young guys.
Winslow got hurt again when they played.
You were going to a bunch of Trenton Watford. You were going to a bunch of kids, and they said coming out of the season, we need more vets because we went to too many kids. And Cronin blamed himself for that. And what did they do? They drafted 3 more kids.
And the things you needed to happen didn't happen. Little didn't jump. He fizzled.
Yeah.
Right. So the goal was like, he could be the starting 3. Like we talked about that before the season. Who's the starting 3? And I was like, you want it to be Little because Hart, you're going to trade. Like we know what you're doing with Hart. He's an expiring contract. And look, the Knicks, it worked perfectly for them both. That's a good trade. They got a first-round draft pick, the Blazers in this end. And the Knicks got Hart, who's just, he just picked up the option. They're going to sign him long-term probably. But Little didn't jump. Nurkic, you needed Nurkic to be better. And Nurkic was Nurkic, right? Like couldn't depend on him. And you needed Chauncey Billups to teach the team to play defense like they never played before under Terry Stotts. And they didn't. And their offense wasn't as good as it was under Stotts. So that's what it didn't work. And you tanked twice. You tank twice, you're in a rebuild. I'm sorry. There's no way out of it, right? You can't
there is a tank graveyard over by Moda where all the tanks that they use during tanking are just sitting there waiting to be refurbished. That's how much tanking they did. It's ridiculous. We agree 100%.
And let's just say this. The tanking worked perfectly. They got Sharp 7 who could potentially be, a star, right? And he was only 7th because he hadn't played basketball since, 8th grade or whatever it was. And then they got Scoot 3rd because they moved up and in the miracle of all miracles, it's a draft with 3 first-round draft picks. Technically, 3 guys that could go number. You know what I mean? That could go number
allegedly
1.
can't miss. Yeah, 3 stars.
So it worked.
So we're going to talk about Grant's situation in the future in a minute, and I'm going to blow your mind again. You're going to pull out the hair on your chin. But let's talk about, because this is important. I was told twice before this all started, before free agency started, and after, that regardless of what happens with Dame, the Blazers are not going to view post Dame as a rebuild. I know but hold on. Now, Grant, we're gonna get more into Grant in a minute. Many believe that if they didn't keep Dame, Grant would leave because Grant said he wanted to win, and it didn't seem like Grant wanted to stick around for, a retooling with a bunch of young kids. But he just got paid $32 million a year, 5 years, 160. Unless they flip that into a sign-and trade, which I don't know where he would go, Grant either would have to just go into free agency and try and going to get less, or just keep the bag and stay here and maybe hope for a trade down the line. But if you keep Grant, you're keeping a pretty big piece. So, but what has to happen next is they have to be able to do really well on this Lillard trade. Lillard has requested Miami specifically. That's where he wants to go. You can get some picks from them. Young player talent, best you can probably do is Tyler Hero. You would probably want to flip Hero because he's redundant, because you have Sharp at the 2. And Hero plays some point, but you got 2 point guards right now and one who can play some 2. So you want to get another team involved to where you can move Hero and or picks. And if they somehow pull this off and come away with a legitimate starting 3, like someone, not an all-star, but someone where you say, okay, yeah, that's a legitimate starting 3, then I think you could have something going that could be solid. But before we get to that, what do you think they could possibly, what's realistic do you think that they could get for Dame in this whole situation, especially when he's zeroed in on one team? And you can't screw him. I know a lot of people are like, just trade him. No, you can't. You screw Damian Lillard, that's going to come back to haunt you for years.
Well, he won't, and he won't. He could just not go. That no team's going to take. He could not report. He's in a place where he doesn't. I'm just saying, he can hold out. No one. He has the threat to say, I'm not going to. Fine, I'll retire. Of course he wouldn't, but I'm just saying, no one's trading Damian Lillard to a place. No one's going to get Damian Lillard if Damian Lillard's not happy.
Exactly. There's no point.
There's no point. They don't want to do that. And if the Blazers do that, it ruins their reputation. The only thing they could try to say is, well, we're not going to trade him. And then Dame would probably say, well, I'm not going to play. What are you going to do? I don't want, why would I go play and pull my Achilles to lose 30 games?
But here's what's funny about
so
this.
What
Go ahead.
Go.
No, just let me go real quick. What's funny to me about this, we just saw with Durant. Durant wanted to go to Phoenix. The Nets got a haul. Because what the NBA has shown is when a player says, I want to go somewhere, the agents and everyone gets together to make it a legitimate trade so the franchise doesn't get completely jacked, although Washington got jacked by Beal. And the player goes where he wants to go, and everyone walks away happy. That's just how the NBA is. So to your point, no team is going to force a trade to get Dame, knowing Dame's going to be unhappy, and the Blazers would be ridiculous to try and force him on someone if Dame doesn't want to be there. So anyway, go ahead.
They're not going to, but this is going to be closer to the Beal than the Durant. It's just because the teams that he wants to go to right now don't have a ton of picks. I mean, Miami's going to have to go get picks from others, or because they have the 28 and 30 first round picks that they could, so you're not going to get equal. No, and of course now Joe Cronin was telling people reportedly and that he's not going to trade him unless he gets basically a premier player back. Well, of course you should say that, but let's see. I mean, you're going to move $60 million a year off your books. I mean, the thing with Grant is with the new CBA, you have to pay somebody. You got to pay money or else you get penalized. So paying Grant makes sense because you got to pay somebody this money, whether or not Lillard was going to be there or not. I think your best case scenario, of course, is to pull in a third team because the assets just aren't there for Miami. There's nobody they're going to be willing to give up. Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, if you mushed them together, are not as good as Damian Lillard. I mean, and how many firsts can you get? You're not going to get 4 first-round draft picks from Miami. They don't exist.
Right.
They don't have them. So you got to find it out. I mean, I would hope that they come away with a guarantee, and it would be nice if it was a 3, 4, or 5. I'll take another 4, because we'll figure out what to do with Grant. You know what I mean? Like anybody over 6'8", to me, if you could get a legitimate good starter and 3 first-round picks. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know, what they could get because we just don't know that stuff. I will say this. You're not going to be happy. Like if you're a Blazer fan, you're not getting equal, talent back. And you're probably going to not get the picks that you've seen other franchises get because they don't exist with to me, it's the Sixers and the Heat, which would make the most sense for, Lillard to go. The Sixers have to move Harden, so maybe they could get some stuff back. But part of the reason why Harden's, pulled the 1-year deal is because he didn't think he could make get a huge deal somewhere else. And the Sixers aren't feeling great about what they can get back. So, yeah, I think in the end, if you're a Blazers fan, keep your expectations low and hope to be surprised with the talent that you receive in return.
I agree. Teams can get creative, though. I kind of feel like they have a shot to maybe come away with maybe a player of Hero's caliber at a different position. I still don't understand the hate for Tyler Hero, and I swear to God, if I hear the term "bad contract" one more time with the phrase, I'm going to lose.
None of these contracts that were signed before this year are bad.
No, if Fred
They're
Van
all
Vliet
beautiful.
can get $43 million a year, Ant is underpaid at 24. Like that's to me, that's not even a thing.
Jalen Brunson, baby. Jalen Brunson. People said the Knicks overpaid.
What's he paying? What's he making?
He's like making 20-something million a year, 100, and it's crazy.
20 is the new average. The new middle class is 20 million. That's what Hero's making 27, I think. And to me, like
Grant's making, 3
32.
years, 160. You know what I'm saying? Like
5 years.
5 years, 160.
Yeah.
If it was 3 years, 160, that'd be crazy. But 5 years, 160. Like everyone thought high end would be 150. That, and he got more. And he's not. His stats are not. They don't come close to that.
No.
20 and 5. When you look at other guys. John Collins' stats, and he's making 17. Like he's a bargain.
John
yeah,
Collins, he gets 20. He's 20 something.
Is he up to 20 something? I'm just saying, like it's just
he got a 5-year, $125 million contract 2 years ago.
I'm just saying that guy averages 13 and 10, and everyone dogs him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and he's 25, and at times he's averaged 21 and 10.
Yeah,
you got to pay in this league, and don't worry, there's money. It's just harder to move now because it's hard to match that stuff. You got to match that money for Dame, like not completely, but you got to get close. So you better hope Hero makes $100-something million. Because if not, you're never going to get off him. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to trade for? Like 10 Stooses? Like, you can't do it. Like, you got to, he just got paid too, though. So, I would, and also at this point in time, I'm not that worried. Now that Dame's going to be gone, I don't care if the roster's that balanced because you're not trying to win a championship now. You made your decision. We just need to see Sharp play and Scoot play and figure out what you want to do with Simons, right? And see what maybe Murray's a shocker, and he's a starter in this league. I don't care if, Hero, comes in and you find, minutes for him here or there, or he underplays and you trade him later. Here's what that dude can do. Shoot. Guess what? That's a talent needed in the NBA, right? You don't have to you turn that later at the trade deadline when guys are trying, teams are winning a championship. You know who could have really used Hero in the
Miami
playoffs?
Heat?
Miami Heat. They got crushed because they couldn't shoot. You know who can shoot? Damian Lillard. So I'm just saying, like guys that can shoot.
Hero is a career 38% on threes. His best year was 39.9 when he shot 10 per game. He's a 20-point scorer.
10.
He can
10.
play.
He shot 10 per game.
He can play some point guard. He's a legitimate 6'5", and he's still a kid, man. He's only 23.
Yeah,
like CJ had his bust out year at what, 25? Because he was 4 years at Lehigh. Right.
He's 4 years at Lehigh.
He's way better than where CJ was at 23. And he's bigger and taller than CJ and more athletic than CJ. But yet people dump on this guy. We don't want that guy. But sometimes I feel like every fan wants, Luka, Giannis, Jokic, Durant, Booker as your starting five, all on about 3-year, $20 million a year contracts, right? That's what people want. So I look at, I would take Tyler Hero in a nanosecond and wouldn't blink. But that's just me. And you know what? Like you said, you're not necessarily trying to contend. I start him at the 3. So let's get to that.
Whatever.
Let's get to that. Let's talk about that. So you're gonna laugh at me. I'm prepared for it. It's fine because you now have your Montreal Expos hat on backwards, looking like
I got heated
dork, looking like a complete dork. But so you can't really crack on me too much at this point. As a matter of fact, I probably need to take a picture of this just so I have it for. Anyway, so let's go back in time. Let's go back in the Fentress Wayback Machine to when Lillard went out with the surgery. And in January and February, Ant was leading the team with Nurkic at center. And they won more games than anyone expected them to win. And right before the break, they won 4 in a row with Ant going into Memphis and lighting it up, Ant going into Milwaukee and lighting it up. And then all of a sudden the injuries hit, right? The phantom injuries for tanking. If you look at things right now, if we take Dame away, Ant now is probably going to be, Ant remains, Ant's going to start at point guard. Right? Just Blazer fans understand right now. Ant is going to start ahead of Scoot. He just is. He's going to beat Scoot out. He's going to light up Scoot in training camp. Oh, and Scoot is not 6'4". I stood next to that dude today he walked right by me and we kind of brushed shoulders. And I stood right next to the guy and I was measuring him up. I'm 6'2". I was wearing shoes. He was wearing shoes. I think I was a little bit taller than him, actually. So he ain't nobody 6'4". But regardless, Ant starts at point. Sharp starts at the 2. You need Sharp to make a big leap, obviously. Let's say you get Hero or someone comparable. You start him at the 3. You got Grant at the 4. You got Nurkic at the 5. That starting 5 is going to be pretty good. They're going to win some games. If you can get any kind of veteran depth, so you got Scoot, you got Murray at the 4, so you're young there. You got to get some vets in there with that mid level. They're going to be at least solid. Like if Sharp makes the jump that he could make, I think they're definitely in the hunt for the plan. And I'm basing that on how well Ant played as the lead guy 2 years ago. The ball is going to be his. He's going to be the lead guy, and I think he's going to put up 25 and 7. And if he does that and Sharp makes a jump, they're going to be pretty damn good.
I'm not going to laugh. I'm not going to laugh. Well, I'm going to start with another Fentress and Birnbach do not agree. Scoot's going to start.
No.
I have zero doubt that Scoot's going to start at point guard.
Bet right now.
Well, Simons, if he starts, he's starting at the 2. I see there no chance that all those players that you mentioned are still on the team because I don't think Lillard goes alone. I think he probably goes with something. And I think it's in a best case scenario in a way for the Blazers. Nurkic goes too because I think it's over. Like you just move off him. I don't think he's going to. I've seen a motivated Nurkic.
Right.
I do not want to see an unmotivated Nurkic, but the Pacers did, and he left. He left the arena while the game was still going on. Like that's what he got. I'm just saying, like Nurkic, I just don't see it. But no, I think Scoot
That's
starts.
fine. If Nurk's gone, then you get a replacement for Nurk, who I think is.
I don't think. I don't think they did this. I'm not going to buy it. I don't think they did this not to start Scoot.
Oh, the Scoot thing. Okay, again.
I'm not saying that Simons isn't better. Of course he is. But you don't you play him. You play him as much as you possibly can, and you don't bring him off the bench.
He can play 28, 30 minutes and not start.
Yeah, I just don't see that. I see you start him. I see you John Morant, go. I don't think
Chauncey. I think Chauncey Billups starts the best guy who's going to help him win, and it's going to be Ant. But we'll see. We got 4 months to figure that out.
It's 82 games, so I would say he starts more games than he doesn't start. If I was going to make a bet, Scoot starts more games than he doesn't start. Like, so if he gets in, even with injuries, let's say he plays 70 games, he's going to start 36. That's my.
So if he's out there shooting 42% and 29 on threes and turning the ball over 5, do you think he's going to start? No, he's going to play as much as he deserves to play, just like Sharp did last year. If he can't beat out,
I don't see it the same because I think that Sharp started once it was over, and when there was no one else to play.
When there was no one else to play.
Like there was nothing else.
But when he started early in the season,
they were trying.
He lost the starting job. But he lost the starting job because he couldn't handle it. I'm telling you, Scoot's not gonna be able to handle this. The Scoot hype needs to chill before people are gonna look really silly come October. The Scoot we saw in
this team's in I don't care what yours. Yeah, but plenty of rookies, when most rookies drafted in the top 5, especially guards, start. Okay. That's just the truth.
Oh my God, I know, but they go to teams that are in rebuild mode and not trying to win. What I'm telling you is that if they keep Grant and their mentality is we can win games like we did that year with Ant and Nurk when Dame was out. And if we think Sharp's going to take a jump, and if they're sitting there day in and day out saying we're trying to win, Ant is definitely going to start over Scoot because he's just way ahead of Scoot. And this hype around Scoot, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like it's so asinine. The guy hasn't done jack stank doodoo on a basketball court to prove that he's ready to start in the NBA for a team trying to win anything. He was not good in the G League, dude. He made good plays.
So I agree.
Good moments, but statistically, he was not good.
I agree with what you just said at the end. I just don't agree that that's what this team is. I agree that he doesn't start on a team that's trying to win. I just don't think the Blazers should. If they do that, if they quote unquote try to win, of course everybody tries to win. Okay. I don't think that. I think it's silly. So,
if they keep Grant, you're not going to try and lose.
Why? Bad teams have good players all the time. It's not
okay. But again, their philosophy is going to be Ant's already shown that when he's the guy, he can put up pretty damn good numbers. They think Sharp's going to make a leap. You keep Grant. You add someone like Hero who's already solid. And if you have a good center or someone comparable to Nurk, you have a pretty potent starting 5. Like they're not going to be bad. They're going to be
they'll be mediocre.
They're going which puts you in the play-in hunt. So if you're trying to win games, you don't want the point guard out there who's turning over the ball and can't shoot. Ant's just a way better player than him right now. Now, once you reach the point where
he better be
right, okay. Therefore, he's going to start. So once you reach the point where you're like done with it, like okay, we suck, it's over, we're not going to be any good. Then maybe you start starting Scoot, and maybe Ant starts at the 2, or you trade Ant or something. But Ant is ahead of Sharp and Scoot, so there's no way Ant's not going to start unless both those guys just make amazing jumps together in the summer, which I don't believe they're going to do. I think Sharp makes enough of a jump to start at the 2 because they don't have another 2. But I don't think Scoot's going to start over Ant if they're trying to win, which I think they're going to do if they keep Grant. Man, it's complicated, isn't it?
I just don't think. I mean, my thing is your plan should be to be in the lottery again. I mean, you're trying to win a championship.
That's what I would do. I would try and get a 20 right, but and that's why you don't keep Grant. Like that's what's crazy about it. Like the whole signing of Grant. But again, I got to keep coming back to this. I was told by a team source that their plan is not to rebuild.
Yeah,
it's to try and go forward and win by flipping Dame into some assets that can help them get there.
This is a franchise that is doing that.
Grant.
Yeah, so they're trying to do too many things at once, and you can't. They want to sell. Their ownership is not a real ownership. It's just not. They don't know what they're doing about, and they're trying to sell tickets and rebuild at the same time. And instead of selling tickets like they did with Lillard and Aldridge, when Lillard came in and did start, they're trying to do when they knew they were going to stink for a little bit, and it was only a little bit because they were older, right? And Dame was not 19, so and Aldridge was already in the league and big and tall. I just think it doesn't make sense. You can't do both. I mean, I don't believe anything they say right now. I mean, like they also said they were building around Dame.
You're right.
Like, so why would I'm at a place right now that I like the people. Like I like Joe Cronin, but I don't necessarily trust anything that comes out of his mouth because he's saying things and doing others. So if he thought we're not capologists, we're not NBA coaches, we're not NBA GMs. I sat here and told you if you draft Scoot, Dame's going to ask out. So either Cronin knew this and said what he said, which is probably more likely for whatever reason, because we don't know who makes him say what, or he somehow thought that Dame was going to be okay with this. So that's not a thing. So why, sure, say we're not going to rebuild. We're going to try to win and win fast. And if you're Joe Cronin, sucking is not great for your resume.
No.
You took over as a GM and all you've done is tank and now trade Damian Lillard. That's not an awesome resume. It's not good. Like everyone wants to kill Olshey, right? You want to kill Olshey. Olshey made playoffs every year for whatever, 9 straight years. 9 years. Joe Cronin.
Made the West Finals.
We love Joe Cronin. Tank, trade Lillard. Like that. Like that's not like if you were blind, oh, by the way, trade CJ, tank, trade Lillard, right? I mean, like it doesn't we're not in a resume that's glowing. It's not his fault per se, but that's not what you want. And if you're Chauncey Billups, do you want to be at another 3 years of in the lottery? Coaches don't last that way. And he doesn't have? He doesn't have 5 years of like he's not Doc Rivers. Like Doc Rivers could tank 3 years in a row and still be at 500. You know what I mean? Like you got to coach for a while. Like his record is going to be one of the worst in NBA history if they tank again and he gets fired, right? I mean, that's not awesome. So I don't know what Bert Cold and Jody, with Jody Allen, I have no idea what they got, what they say, what they want. I mean, we all work for people. Joe Cronin works for somebody that we have no connection with and no understanding of their philosophy. So we don't know who's telling him to do what.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with the. To me, you strip it down, you get that 2024 lottery pick. Because if you make the playoffs next year, you lose that pick to the Bulls. It won't be lottery though. You get that lottery pick, and you hope you can get yourself a big, right? And then you move forward with a group of little guards and a medium-sized guard and a big. I'm just saying that the fact that if they're going to keep Grant, man, if you're going to put that much money into Grant, and if you're able to turn Dame into a good player, you're not going to be that bad, is what I'm telling you, especially if Sharp makes a leap. You're going to be pretty good. Now, depth, scoot your backup point. Matisse, you have Matisse at backup 2. You got Nasir Little. You got Chris Murray, Walker. Your bench, still suspect. You've got to use a mid-level to try and go get a couple veteran guys in there. What veteran guys want to come to Portland with that team? I don't know. I'm just saying that Ant, Sharp, Hero, even if you went that route with Grant and Nurkic, they're going to win some games if they're healthy. But the problem is, are they going to be healthy? Is Nurkic going to be motivated? Nurkic's probably going to be gone, but if you replace him with a comparable center, you're still back in the same position. That is at least, I think, the fantasy right now, although I agree with you that it probably is fantasy. And it's probably something that even if they do try it, because a lot of things in the NBA look good on paper, but injuries hit, your lack of depth gets exposed, your youth gets exposed, your backup point guard minutes. It's, how if is Scoot going to be a -10 every night? You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's plausible to be anything better than maybe a play-in threat if that small forward is legit. But at the end of the day, we agree that the best case scenario is to move Grant. Like, get off that contract if you can and just suck. Start Chris Murray, go 20-62, and be back in the lottery.
And I think if you're a Blazer fan, why the heck would you want to be mediocre again and just go right into the same thing that's been what you've been dealing with, and then not get a chance for the home run? Because there are so few home runs outside the top 15 in the draft. It just doesn't exist very often. It's just complete and total luck. So if you get in the play-in and then make the playoffs and then don't get a lottery pick, you just kind of hose yourself, because that's what you need is a superstar. That's what this league is about, and you don't win championships without, we sit there and say, Dame, you had a superstar and couldn't win a championship because he only played with one all-star. That was Aldridge, and Aldridge left. And the reason why we're here is because you only had one. Well, now you got none. So you got to get one of these two that you just picked in the lottery. If you got one of them to be to be an all-star, that's beating the odds. But you got two lottery picks, and you can't, if they both develop, you then have to keep them, because odds are they're not going to win it when they're 20. You know what I mean? So you gotta build in levels, and what you can't afford to do is go and be mediocre, and then Grant gets old or you dump him and then you suck, because then your young guys who are good are gonna be like, yeah, I'm out. Like, hey, the Knicks are close.
Yep.
Let's do it. And then you're just doing it again. It's a true statement. Either you're rebuilding or you're contending. The middle ground is what we've had for 10 years, and it's not. It's exactly that. If you're ownership, making the playoffs is great. You make money. You know what I mean? If that's where you're at, you can make money and be fine. And right now, that's what I want. That's why no podcast will happen without me mentioning ownership. Because you get a new owner that wants to win and doesn't care about the bottom line money, you have a much better chance than if you're owned by a trust. And if you don't agree with that, Fentress, we're not friends.
Wow. Ooh, that escalated quickly. I don't know how much.
Well, you know it.
You
know it. Being owned by a trust sucks.
That actually is. But yeah. Now,
He'd like to unload me.
You brought up the point of what's going to happen with the two youngins, right? And that's why I'm gonna call them until they get older. But there's no guarantee both are going to be stars. Although I think they both have high ceilings. We agree with that. But you don't know if they're going to have the personality and the maturity and the temperament of Dame, and if they're going to want to stay here. One of them could the entire time be dreaming of getting to New York or LA or somewhere, and the other one could just, if one leaves, the other one might leave too. And even if both stay, you could find yourself we got to add someone to these guys. We got to get someone in here to help them win. And then how hard is that going to be? Because it's never really been done in this market. So then that prompts them to maybe want to leave. So it's going to be dicey moving forward. The idea that these two are going to be dominant backcourt for 10 years in Portland, it's just unrealistic. It's just, I hope to see it happen. I'm not rooting against it, but it's just not something that you can count on. So anyway,
Scoot wants to be a star. Well, Scoot, I would say just from the few interviews and seeing stuff from Summer League, Scoot wants to be a megastar. There's no doubt. Right. Shaden's different, right? And some of that is
for now.
Right now, of course. But he hasn't been in the same kind of spotlight that Scoot has since he was young. Canadian, which it's a little different there. Also, he went to Kentucky and didn't play. So it's a different thing. But Scoot wants to be a star. And look, I think Shaden can take a huge step. But right now, let's get a trade. Let's figure this out. Let's go. Let's see where we are. Let's not have this last. Let these agents get their, this thing done, and then inform the teams how it gets done, because that's where we're at with this thing, is that there's got to be a lot of agents talking and figuring things out with those, with the teams. And let's figure it out, because I'm excited to at least move past this. I am, what I told you before we started the podcast, I kind of knew it had to be fast, because Dame had to say something quickly because he knows that once people start making moves, doors close. But I am glad that, and I'm glad he did it on a day that Twitter broke, because that's just funny. Because Twitter kind of broke, and I'm blaming Dame.
All right, I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, and my Expos hat rocks. I don't care.
I ain't hating. All right, we're gonna be back as soon as a trade breaks. We're gonna be back, right? Whatever
right,
you're doing, you're gonna drop the kids off at the park.
I only got one. Can't drop off a 6-year-old. You end up in jail.
Drop off the kid at the park, and we just jump on a podcast. All right, thanks for listening to this episode. Man, a new era is here. I guess we'll have to look forward to just talking about the evolution and development of Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp moving forward. Sad day for the Blazers overall, and Rip City losing a guy like Damian, but he gave this franchise a lot. 11 years, could have easily left 4 or 5 years ago, and he chose to stick it out. He gave them 2 years to fix things under Cronin, and they just simply didn't get it done, for better or for worse. Blame whoever you want to blame, but at the end of the day, this is the best move for him. It's the best move for the franchise because they just obviously cannot build around him. So we'll be back soon as the trade is completed to overanalyze that. And I'll once again come up with my master plan for them to be good next season. And maybe I'm doing this in part because I just don't want to cover a 25-win team. I covered my first 2 years on the beat, first full 2 years. Actually, I've been 3 years already. So I guess the first year is actually pretty good. I ended in the playoffs, and now the last 2 tanks. And if I have to go through another bad season, that wouldn't be very much fun. Anyway, click that subscribe button and give us a positive rating, and we will catch you as soon as a trade is completed.